Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I was asked a couple of questions, so I wanted to do a little short video to answer the brother questions, and I got some other questions from other people, so I'll try to answer them so I don't have to be trying to text a detailed message, plus something I might say might benefit others. So one brother asked me, is it possible to live a life without any major or minor sins? I would say it's possible to live a life without any major sins, but we're going to commit some sins. We're going to commit some sins. Nobody's going to be perfect. But the beauty of Islam, the hikmah that Allah Azza wa Jal sent down to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to teach us in the Quran al-Kareem, in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah gave us the remedy for when we are sinning. So Allah knew we was going to sin. So some of the remedies of sins is tawbah, istighfar, saying astaghfirullah, seeking forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jal. Like Allah Azza wa Jal tell us in the Quran, when you do a bad deed is a sin, right? You follow up that bad deed with a good deed. Also, from particular hadiths, it also, with some explanation, go even further. When you have a bad thought, follow up those bad thoughts with good ones, because shaitan can trick you with those thoughts. They might be whispers. So, like, for instance, you could have a friend, it could be your spouse, and they may do some things that anger you, and then in your head you just might be like, I ought to do this to them, next time I see them I'm gonna do this. And sometimes you should just pause it and replace those thoughts with something good. Think about good things they done for you. Think about good times that y'all had, or think about a better way to deal with it. Like, you know what, I'm just gonna have to stay away from that person. That's the best thing for my deen. See, a lot of times we ask a question to ourselves, what's the best thing for me? Sometimes you have to transfer those thoughts to, what's the best thing to do for my deen? Because you got to keep in mind, man, Jannah is our goal. Sometimes what you feel like is the best thing for me, this is the best thing for me, might be more harmful, as opposed to if you think, what's the best thing for me to do in this situation? What's the best thing for my deen? What's the best thing for me to do for my deen? And then you'll do what Islam tell you to do, because Islam has the remedy. So because you could end up falling into a major sin, you could end up falling into a minor sin, but what you're doing, you may feel like this was the best thing for me, but it could have been a terrible thing for your deen. So you gotta be able to seek tawbah. Now, for your major sins, so one, a small distinction between major sins and minor sins. A major sin is the sins that has punishment of the hellfire attached to it. Like, if you do this, you're going to be punished with the hellfire. There's some type of punishment in the hereafter, right? Some punishment in the grave. If you do this, Allah won't look at you or won't talk to you on the day of judgment. These type of sins are major sins, right? And if it puts you in a category of where you are considered to be an evildoer, like you just a person that's always doing evil, why would this put you in the category? Why would this be in the category of major sins? Because for one, Allah informs us in the Quran that Allah does not guide the evildoer. So if you put yourself in a position where you're not going to be guided by Allah, what's your chances of getting into Jannah? Or what's the chances of you not accumulating a mountain of bad deeds? So there's an extreme punishment attached to being an evildoer. So these things, because like I say, this is just in general. These is brief answers. So major sins is what has some major punishments from Allah, or punishments that are associated with hellfire, or punishments in the hellfire. Like when you go and start looking at some of the descriptions of the punishments in the hellfire, like the ones who going to be getting their mouth with these two major hooks, and your mouth getting ripped apart, to your jaws being ripped apart, and then it'll form all the way back, and just to get ripped again. The certain punishments where a person, all their intestines, their stomach, all gonna come out of their anus, and they're gonna be in this part of the hellfire, and they're gonna run around in a circle while all their guts and entrails and everything just drowning on the ground. Dragging on the ground. Things that these is these major punishments, and these is for major sins. Like in the Quran, man, certain things where where it say where basically like some hot lavish type fire is going to be poured on the top of your head as it runs down your face. So these things that's attached to that is major sins. So your minor sins isn't necessarily have a punishment that's attached to the hellfire or anything like that, but you can lose good deeds for it. You see what I'm saying? Some of the ulama describes a sin like as in a minor sin, anything that you feel wrong about in your heart. You know what I'm saying? Like let's say you having a bad day, and maybe a friend or somebody call you on the phone, or you at work, and you might have an attitude, and you might say some things you really didn't mean, and then later on you be like, man, you know what, I was wrong for that. Let me go apologize to them. Some people are not gonna say let me go apologize for them, but as Muslims, you have to rectify your bad deeds, rectify the affair. That's your process of following up the bad deed or the bad action with a good one. You know what I'm saying? So these things help you with those issues. Now, major sins you have to make tawbah for major sins. A lot of people think doing 2 rakats is tawbah. No, the 2 rakats is to follow up the bad deed with a good one. So the 2 rakats is the good deed. Tawbah is to turn all the way completely around, turn away from that sin and completely stop doing it. So some of the scholars say that a sign that your tawbah was accepted is that you actually stop doing that sin. But if you keep continuing doing it, then how can you call it tawbah? Because tawbah means you had to completely quit doing it. You see what I'm saying? You had to turn around and go the other direction. Your minor sins, you can, rectify it. Astaghfirullah. If you did something to somebody, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong. If it's somebody you may not ever see again, then you could do some things, follow up that bad deed with a good deed. Go feed somebody. You know, these things is expiations. You know, find somebody you know that might not be doing too good and take them out to eat or something. You know, buy them some food, or you know, they may need a little something. You know, go to if your parents still alive, go to your mother or something and say, although you know it's a parent, but these are just things you could do, and say, how much was your water bill this month? Here goes something on your water bill. You see what I'm saying? Just something you can think of. Now, me generally, I try to help somebody that I don't know, because sometimes, like doing something for your mom because of trying to fix something that you did with somebody that you might not never see again. Like you might get to arguing with somebody in traffic and you got on kufis and thobes and all that, or Kmart, and you get to arguing with somebody in traffic you never seen before, you never gonna see them again, but it might put in their mind, that's why I hate Muslims. Now they might see another Muslim somewhere and do something to them because they couldn't do something to you. So you know, you make a dua, Allah forgive me for that situation, you know, I was wrong for that. Please don't let some hatred for Islam get into their heart and they do something to another Muslim because they got into an argument with me. So then, you know, I might see a homeless person or something. Regardless of what they're going to do with the money, I'm going to give them some money and say, here, go get you something to eat with it. Now, what they choose to do afterwards, that's on them. But I know what I gave it to them for. And I ask Allah to accept that. So, following up those things with good deeds, and, you know, of course, a stock for the law, stock for the law, stock for the law. These is for your minor sins. And you see hadiths where it say, even a prick from a thorn on your finger is an expiation for minor sins. So this is some of the things that we need to realize when we start to realize certain things we getting punished in this life for certain sins we doing. You may be walking and just trip and twist your ankle real bad. You know, just regular walking. You might just be walking and clumsily just fall down some steps and hurt yourself. These things is expiation from your sin. Like it be times, man, I might just be walking and, you know, getting out of the tub or something and just hit my elbow real hard or something. And that right there, when that thing start, when little things like that start happening to me, let's say I'm sitting in this desk, at this desk, and I turn my chair and to get up and I hit my knee real hard, I know these is expiations for sin. So once little things like that start happening, I'll be like, okay, let me get myself together, because you may have done something that you didn't realize was a sin, or you done something a month ago that you overlooked and didn't say it's that, you know, a stock for the law or anything, or you didn't follow it up with a good deed. Now certain little things is happening to you to expiate that sin that you did. So it is possible to avoid major sins, but a lot of the minor sins is going to be difficult. We're going to commit sins because we always under the attack from Shaitan and his army. You see what I'm saying? We always under the attack from Shaitan and his army. So we're going to fall into sin. You know, it's hadith, man. The children of Adam, we going to fall into sin. One of the sins that you can fall into is not doing what Allah tells you to do when you sin. Now, certain things that like require Tawbah, you have a certain amount of time to seek Tawbah before that sin is written down for you. If you don't do that, you be negligent of that, then you under the sin of being negligent. You see what I'm saying? You under the sin of, you know, these are small sins, but you know, you didn't really do what Allah told you to do to rectify that affair. These is small sins. You know what I'm saying? So minor sins we gonna fall into. Major sins, you know, it's possible to avoid major sins because some of them so major. You know, like major sins, you know, it's like killing people, illegal sexual intercourse, which is, if you marry and you got you a little side chick, now that's falling into adultery. You know what I'm saying? And this as Muslims, so now you falling into fornication and adultery. Now, if you're not married and you having sex with somebody, this is fornication. Now, we know the punishment in Islam, like if you marry and you having sex with something on the side, male and female, we know what the punishment for that in Islam. Fornication is a little different. You're not married and you just having sex with people. This is still illegal sexual acts. These are major sins. So these things can be avoided. You see what I'm saying? Dealing with intoxicants. And see, we need to keep it at intoxicants as opposed to just saying alcohol, drinking. Because there's a lot of things that intoxicate the brain. Pills, smoking weeds, and marijuanas and all that, and all these new things, these K2s, and a lot of things intoxicate the mind. And you have some people who feel like, okay, I don't drink, I just get high. Still a buzz. It's still doing something to the brain. So dealing with the intoxicants, these things is major sins, plus they can lead to even more major sins, because a lot of times when people do things that they really regret, they was drunk and high. You see what I'm saying? Because their mind was under the influence of what intoxicated them. They might get into a fight with somebody over absolutely nothing. You know what I'm saying? That fighting might lead to some stabbing and shooting. Two people, I've seen it. I done seen people just get into a fight over a card game. Wasn't gambling, no money involved or nothing. One people just losing the card game and got mad, but they intoxicated, fight broke out. I done seen people get to fighting over a video game. They intoxicated. They playing video game, playing some basketball, some boxing, some type of sport or something, and get to losing. And they making it fun of each other while they playing. Fight break out. And sometimes it can happen with other Muslims, and then this could create bad blood between two Muslims. And when two Muslims go a certain amount of time without rectifying that affair, none of their good deeds is accepted until they rectify that affair. This is a major punishment. So these things could turn into a major sin. So although it could be minor, but it could turn into a major sin. So it's possible to live without major sins, but we're going to have some minor sins. And that's why you have to do istighfar. That's why you have to stay on top of your prayers, because these things expiate those sins, and but you got to ask for the forgiveness. So that's just in brief. Although it's a long answer, it could be more detailed is what I'm saying. The next question was, and can you still be considered a pious person while committing the sins? So there's authentic hadith that says at the time while the person is committing the sin, they are a kafir. So let's say you fornicating with somebody. At that time when you fornicating, you're a kafir. So no, you're not considered a pious person at the time while you committing those sins. And some of us live a life of sin. Like, let's say, for instance, a drug dealer, right? At the time when you sell that drug to a person, you're sinful. But when you have drugs in your home or drugs at another house, and when you go to bed at night with the intentions to get up in the morning and sell those drugs and these intoxicants and these things that you're being sinful for, your intentions is to live a life of committing this crime every day. But you might be praying, you might be doing this, but you putting yourself in a state, even if you want to break it all the way down to the point where I'm only a kafir at the moment I sell these drugs with this haram money. but then you turn around and go use that haram money. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful. So at the moment you're committing those sins, due to numerous authentic hadiths, you consider to be a kafir. Now, if you're doing these sins and you making tawbah and leaving these sins off, because you're going to have some good righteous people, then you have to go look at what's piety, what's righteous in Islam. So you're going to have to look at these things and try to do the best that you can and be sincere. And keep in mind with your 4 categories of doing good deeds, you got to have the correct intentions, purify your intentions. That is for Allah alone. Then you got to have the correct sincerity. So like, you see what I'm saying? You got to have correct sincerity. Like, I'm really doing this for the purposes of pleasing Allah first, and then whatever benefit that comes to you second. And not for I'm doing something for you because I expect something in return. Perhaps this may be a sister. Perhaps this may catch your eye and then you might like me later. You know, your intentions is to get liked later. You see what I'm saying? So that's where the sincerity lies. You're not sincere to them. You're being sincere to yourself, because you expect something in return, and then you might expect something from Allah in return. So it's doing something because you want something. It's not doing something for nothing other than pleasing Allah. So you got to correct your sincerity, and it got to be done in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah with the correct understanding. So you could still be a good person and you could do this and that, but just like, even as the question is an answer also in itself. If you see a Muslim brother and they beating women, they beating up people on the streets, but they in the masjid, they fasting, they running around shooting at people and getting in the shootouts, right? They dealing illegal substances, they're bully. You know what I'm saying? But they might have some kids that they take care of. They nice to their kids, they nice to their mother, they nice and good to a couple of Muslim brothers, but they running around wreaking havoc on the streets. You gonna look at them and say, hey, yo, this dude ain't a pious person. Female. So like, if they out there living this life of sin, man, they're a sinful person. Now it's the difference between a righteous person that commits a sin and then they do what they supposed to do when they commit that sin. They make tawbah and istighfar for the minor sins, and they follow up the good deeds for the bad deeds. That's a part of being pious. Okay? So, and that's in brief. So the next question is, when people die, do they go straight to heaven or hell, or wait in the grave to the day of the resurrection? When we pass away, as soon as we pass away, you enter the Barzakh. So you enter the Barzakh before you even enter the grave. The Barzakh is basically the life after this one, right? Soon as that soul is pulled from you, from this physical body, you officially entered the Barzakh. Now you will be in the grave until the day of resurrection, the day when all the people are risen, and everybody is going to be, it ain't like I die and then I'm going to be raised up and judged. No, you're going to be in the grave. That's why you're supposed to make du'as for a spacious grave that's full of light, free of torment, you know, that's comfortable. Because one thing about it, if you was a particular type of person, once you get covered in that dirt, this is your ribs, right? The grave is going to squeeze you until your ribs come together like this. Then, you know, the angels come down. You also get questioned in the grave. when you can't answer those questions in the grave, and these questions are going to be answered based off of how you practice your deen. You're going to get hit with a hammer that's going to smash this everything all at once. So there's punishments in the grave. You live a certain type of life, you can be in a grave that's spacious, that's pleasant. Like they say, your grave can be so wide that even up to the sides, it goes as far as the eye can see. So you want a spacious grave. Some of the things in the grave, you will be shown where your place is going to be. So if you go into the hellfire, then all day long you're going to be looking at different things in the hellfire. You know what I'm saying? If you go into Jannah, you're going to, you get to see that. Your grave will be pleasant. It'll be spacious. But you're going to be in the grave. Now, one thing about it, the hereafter, time with Allah doesn't have a limitation like time with us. So, I'm saying that to say, sometimes, let's say you go to sleep. You be like, man, I'm finna lay down. I'm finna go to sleep for about 5-10 minutes. And then you wake up like, man, that's some of the best sleep I done had. And 6-7 hours done passed. But you felt like you only slept about 10-15 minutes. But then sometimes you can fall asleep and feel like you doze off and feel like you done slept for about 3-4 hours. And you wake up and like 10-15 minutes done pass. It's been times I laid down and went to sleep and had a dream that was so long and so detailed. Now look, I'm talking about, I fell asleep, my alarm went off, I hit the snooze button. Snooze button is 5 minutes. I fall asleep, I have a long, detailed, drawn out dream. And then towards the end, something happened and it was a decision that I didn't want to make. So I ended up waking myself up. I wake up and then I get to doing like this and I look at my clock. I'm like, whoa. Then the alarm went off for the snooze button. So I wouldn't even sleep a full 5 minutes. But I had a dream that seemed like it lasted for hours. So I'm explaining that because some feel like the time in the grave might feel like 5 minutes. There's no proof of that, but there's some that say you just don't know. Although you might be getting punished, it might not feel like 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. You see what I'm saying? That's the opinion of some, and that's some of the details that they give, like when you fall asleep. So I understand why they can come to that conclusion, but there's no proof that that's actually how it goes. So there's also, now this isn't for every martyr, but for particular, I haven't seen that it's for every martyr, but for people who die in a true, real cause of Allah, with the right intentions and sincerity, then it is said they don't have to go to the grave. They will be, their soul will be in, some of the details that say green birds, and they will get to be in a certain level of Jannah until the day of resurrection. And they get to eat from like the berries, and there's like a little river that they could go to if they're a particular type of legislated martyr. And this is what the Rasul told him about people who died at the Battle of Uhud. And so, because there's different type of ways to be a martyr. Like you can die defending your home. I'm not sure that particular type of martyr ends up in the green bird. So they won't necessarily be in the grave. There's a hadith where Uthman went to sleep and had a dream, and the Rasul and Abu Bakr and Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, they came to Uthman. Well, he seen them, and then the Rasul told him something along the lines of, you will be joining us for breakfast. So when he woke up, he took that as a sign. I'm going to die today. So, you know, he went through his modesty and he dressed up in all pure white. You know, Uthman, may Allah be pleased with all of them, was so pious and so modest. And this is a page I took from him. Like, he didn't show no skin outside his hands and his face. And then what was above, you know, his ankles where he kept his lower garments. So he, you know, he doubled up his clothing because he was like, if they kill me, like if I die in the form where they kill me, I got enough clothes on where none of my nudity is shown. Like my chest and my navel is not going to be hanged out. You know, when I read these things about him and looked at certain hadiths, that's what stopped me from wearing short sleeve shirts. You know, the modesty that he had. So, and I'm mentioning that because some people feel, because the Rasul told him that the Rasul then was already in Jannah. So, and he was like, you gonna join us tomorrow. But that was a form of martyrdom, what he went through. So, he could possibly be, I don't want to place him. You see what I'm saying? But I know some people take this hadith and run with it like you won't be in the grave, like you die and go to Jannah. I don't take it that way. I understand he was a martyr. I read enough. You know, I've listened. I sat in some classes. I've studied enough. So that's not the opinion I have, but I'm not no scholar. I'm not in, you know, because there's too much that shows we will be in the grave. But there are certain people that die certain type of ways, have certain type of statuses with Allah Azza wa Jal, and they get to be in certain parts of Jannah. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully, man, that answer it in brief. So another question I was asked as far as, you know, where have I studied, where have I learned different things. I'm going to end this video and then I'll do another short video on that one. And then I also want to do another video on building a Muslim community. Like the difference between establishing a masjid and establishing a Muslim community. And I'm going to try to keep them brief. I wanted this one to be shorter, but alhamdulillah, man, Qadr of Allah. This is how long, you know, this is what was written for the distance of this video to be. So, you know, it's Friday, it's Jummah, I got to get ready for Jummah, things that I got to do. So, I'm going to end this one. Any mistakes I made, because like I say, this is brief, it's in general. I don't have like different books, so I'm not busting out the Dalil or anything. And from what I've read, the limited I'm not going to say limited knowledge that I have, but the limited understanding that I have, these is from things that I've been taught, things that I've read, things that I've studied in detail. This is a brief general answer about those things. Now, not to say you can't go on the internet and Google and find some different answers of opinions, but you're going to have to look and see where's the authentic sources, because like I say, some people do have some different opinions and they run with them, and then it's a speculation off different things, but they're missing a lot of details from different hadiths, Quran ayats, in the tafsirs, and different details that also need to be looked into before they run with the type of opinion that they running with. So, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Any mistakes I made came from myself and the shaitan. Anything that I said that was correct and accurate came from Allah Azza wa Jalla al-Muqtadir wa al-Alim. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.